Hey everybody, welcome to the Art Take video edition. On this episode, we are going over my art recommendation to Pete from episode 3, Influences, and my art rec to Pete was the duo combo of Alex Webb and Rebecca Norris Webb, husband and wife, photographers, poets, all around cool folks. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so the last time we recorded this, I failed to press the record button. But what I will tell you about that last episode is it was so good.
Yeah.
We might have won an award
Probably.
for it, actually. And I think
the YouTubies.
Yeah, the YouTubies. That's great.
Okay, so I made this presentation, and these are identical spreads from a book I have called Slant Rhymes by both artists, Alex Webb and Rebecca Norris Webb. Here is the book itself, and each of the spreads contains a photo or poem or writing from each of them. So each spread is like half Alex's and half Rebecca's, and I think you know enough about each of their work to kind of like decide which is which.
Right.
So maybe we could do that with each slide and just talk about like the combo and, you know, what's different, what's similar and stuff like that.
All right. So right off the bat, this is a prime example of what I learned in the previously not recorded episode. And the comparison was the poetic eye that Rebecca Norris Webb had. Alex Webb has a very technically sound approach. And in my mind, this is a prime example of those two.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. When you're talking about like technically sound, I think we're talking about like composition, color, which is kind of applicable to both. But Alex definitely likes like really complex and dynamic compositions, which is on display here. And like you're saying about Rebecca's work, it's kind of more poetic, kind of slow, more close-ups, more like I would say more like emotionally charged and more intimate.
Yeah, and so in regards to these two photos, right off the bat, I would draw the comparison, or I can see why they put these two together based on their color. But for me, I kind of see the sort of 3D pop similarity. So you get this like flat image, well, not flat in terms of like uninspirational or not pretty or whatever.
Maybe just like
just focusing on these three, and then like this.
Yeah.
But then this sort of focuses you to like you sort of start focusing more on like the depth in the back and how it relates to the front of the photo.
Exactly.
The yellows and the greens and the blues and all of the colors that sort of relate, and you kind of see this sort of, even if you look back here, you know. Whereas this one, again, you still want to look back here and see the story and how it continues, you know, and how it relates to the front of the photo.
Like the browns, and like the really stark whites.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good analysis, especially since you're talking about like the flatness of the left image, Alex's. And I think that's a really cool comparison because like all three of these people, they kind of exist in the foreground, right?
Exactly. That's what I meant by
like,
flatness. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a tight depth in which they reside, at least how the camera captures it.
Yeah.
And that is very similar to the plane of the wing and like the guy holding the wing.
Right.
So that is very well seen and spoken. With this work in particular, it's called Slant Rhymes, which in poetry is like a word for rhymes that like kind of rhyme on mostly on the vowel, but they're not like complete like rhymes. Like day and say are like complete full rhymes, right? But if you like try to rhyme say with 8, that's kind of like a slant rhyme where it's still like the strong A sound, but it doesn't end in the same consonant. So that's kind of like the idea behind like
hip hop.
Right. Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
But also like this book where it's like not complete rhymes, but they still like relate in a similar way. And actually, I'm flipping through the book, and both of these were taken in Havana, Cuba, probably at the same time.
Bam.
Cool. This is a spread towards the end of the book, and then also the image on the right is on the cover.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the image on the left is new to me
Yeah,
because
I put a bunch of new ones.
the last episode or the unrecorded episode, we looked over the right image.
Mm-hmm. We had a lot to say.
Yeah, we definitely had a lot to say. And basically, what I was trying to say is that photo on the right evoked a sense of uh, caution to me. It made me sort of feel like I shouldn't be there, you know?
Yeah.
And that's mostly like if I were to look at this photo and not see that bird there, I would probably be like, "Oh, this is a really beautiful still life image." But for some reason, that bird makes me feel like I shouldn't be there.
Like
You
you
know?
intruded and it's kind of
Yeah,
like startled and flied away.
exactly.
Yeah, I see that for sure. Um,
Um,
oh, yeah, go
but
for it.
yeah, I was just gonna comment on again the egg being there, and that is probably the most interesting part of that photo to me. Like, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful photo, and I can look at it for a very long time. But I don't know, because maybe it's those things on the right look like these right here
Mm-hmm.
look like spices to me, and then you're gonna cook, and then that bird's sort of leaving, and I don't know. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
it's
stories
definitely a
there.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like the egg is kind of like the cherry on top, I think. Because if it were just like this table structure, the wall, the spices and stuff, and the bird flying away, it would be like, oh, cool. There's like a dynamic element and like a static element, right?
yeah,
But then the static element is now tied to the dynamic element with the bird and the association with the egg. So
yeah. And then to
it's yeah.
further that, this kid
Mm-hmm.
is like, "What you doing there? What are you doing there?" You know,
Yeah. He's
fascinating.
definitely like contorted. And
Yeah,
I had like yeah, I have a weird I don't know, this one trips me up because is he like contorted or is he looking through a hole?
yeah. You know, and the first thing I thought of was like, "Oh, he's like peeking through a hole in the wall," but then that
Yeah.
kid up in the right
How
is
is he
not.
floating on the wall?
He's not floating on the wall. So
Yeah.
what I think is this kid is going to scratch his back and
Hmm.
is also looking in this direction.
Yeah. I
like
see it.
like
Yeah.
this.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I'm not even sure what to make of it, honestly. I think he's kind of like turning really suddenly, and in my mind, he kind of like mimics the egg, where he's just like this small element, and then you have something like moving away, kind of, and facing a
Mhm.
different direction that
Right.
is somehow tied to it. Do you think
Next.
these work
Oh,
well together?
I think that this photo makes this photo look good.
Yeah, I agree. I think in a lot of these spreads, which is kind of the point of spreads, you can't have things that are competing too strongly with each other, or else
Mhm.
like they kind of like don't play well together. I think definitely the one on the left, Alex's, is a compliment to um, Rebecca's on the right, where
Right.
that is like the main picture, and then this is sort of like something that kind of like reinforces it, makes
Mhm.
it better.
All
Cool.
right. Next.
Number three.
Bam. Dang.
Killer, right?
Yeah. Oh, this is a straight up painting right here.
That's what I said when I saw it. I was like, I want to paint that shit for
That's a
sure.
straight up painting.
Yeah, it's
That's
insane.
beautiful. This one's also fascinating. I love looking at this, but for some reason this car, and I know it's like red and white and stuff like that, but that car is just maybe I just hate cars like in general.
Good thing you don't live in LA.
I know. That's probably why I hate cars.
Yeah, maybe. So left, Alex Webb, Erie, Pennsylvania. And then
Hmm.
right, Rebecca, near Hermosa, South Dakota. And I think this is part of her project My Dakota, where she was documenting her home state, on the eve of losing a family member.
Right.
It sounds like you have a big preference towards the right image. I would agree.
Yeah.
But for this one, I think it's a little bit more contested on which one is the quote unquote main image and which is kind of the complementary one. I think it could go either way, honestly,
I
like
mean, I
depending on
think it's
taste.
honestly, I think it's if I never saw the photo on the left again,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably be okay. But if I never saw the photo on the right, I'd probably be kind of bummed. You
I
know?
think that's kind of paradoxical, but I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
well, okay, so the reason
Like if
why
you never saw it again, you mean?
exactly, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's what I
Okay.
mean. That's what I mean.
Gotcha.
Um the image on the left, I feel like honestly I kind of just want to like I kind of want to 6-7 this
Oh, yeah.
and just crop out the car and
Mm-hmm.
like just I don't want this man to be cropped out, but just the car.
Yeah.
And like it's just me, you know? Because like I'm looking at the car the whole time.
Oh, I see. I definitely disagree. I think like the car, like you were saying before, like the red, like reinforces
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I think a lot would be lost if you, well, if you said 6-7, like if you just focused on the left side, I think a lot would be lost, like the fountain, and it kind of like establishes the park more with that structure on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dad, like you said, you want to keep the dad, but if you like chopped like that
I
off, then
know.
the dad would be gone.
I know.
And I think the rainbow is fantastic.
The
I think
rainbow is
that's
fantastic.
insane to
The
capture.
rainbow is fantastic. The rain, the amount of well, it's not rain, it's just from the fountain. But
Mm-hmm.
like the amount of water
Yeah.
and both of the kids, like the way they're like playing or posed or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a real moment for sure.
Yeah, it's a huge moment and it's like it's fun to see and I kind of wish that I could like go to a park and play in a fountain still, you
Yeah.
know? But yeah.
All right. So we talked about the left and how we don't like it, but we do
Or and
like
also
it.
we like it, yeah, you
Yeah.
know.
But both of us seem to really, really, really like the right one. And I think part of it is like the painterly aspect, right?
Yeah.
What else do you like about it?
This photo to me represents a situation that I feel like I could be in, you know,
Just kind of like an everyday thing, maybe,
or
or maybe not
like
every day,
not
but
every day, but I kind of remember and wish that I. Oh, here we go. I think the reason why I like it is because it does make me reminisce about taking, you know, road trips with my friends,
mm-hmm.
and I always wish that I had a like I was into photography when I was taking those road trips.
Yeah,
And this is the kind of photo that I wish I took, you know. And
yeah, I
I
got
feel
you.
like it reminds me of that, you know.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like um, introspective versus like the voyeuristic nature, of like Alex's work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is something that I resonate a lot with Rebecca's.
Yes. Yeah, you nailed it right there. For sure. For
Neat.
sure.
Number 4,
Yeah.
unless you have more stuff to say about that last
No,
one.
I'm sure it'll come up again though.
All right, cool. I think this is a really cool spread.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
First thoughts, what do you think?
My first thought for some reason is do I want the image on the left to be on the right?
Oh, interesting.
But
Is it because
then
of like weight, you think?
I think so. Also, diptychs for some reason are always left and right. Maybe it's just because of the book.
Like
But I wonder if it would have been like
top
if
and bottom?
yeah, I wonder if the right image could have been on the top. Or I just would like to see this in all ways,
Yeah, just play around with
just to play
the
around
layout.
with it. But they're not my photos, so
Yeah.
I I love the okay, so this is like what I like about this, other than like wanting to play around with the outlay, but I like the fear or the uneasy feeling that you get from these two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just the little boy's face, and also the fact that these adults are walking towards him, seemingly,
Yeah.
and they're in red or reddish orange,
Yeah.
San Francisco Giants colors. But with this photo often animals that are large
Mm-hmm.
or carnivorous have a bad representation in media,
Mm-hmm.
and they're often shown as vicious hunting animals
Yeah.
and something that we need to fear. You know, right off the top, I could think of Jaws, right? Let's fear great white sharks, even though they're not inherently bad,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So lions have this aura around them of being spiritual, but also feared,
Yeah.
you know.
As
And these
predators.
as predators, yeah. And
Yeah.
these two together, especially this being the same color as this,
Mm-hmm.
could give you fear.
Yeah.
But when you look at his eyes and you look at the it's such an interesting little combination here because
Mm-hmm.
like this color gives off fear because of the little boy,
Mm-hmm.
but this color gives off warmth even though they're the same color.
Interesting.
And in my eyes, a lion represents warmth, family, you know, and packs and being
Mm-hmm.
together and you know.
I got you. Nice.
And I kind of want to guess that this is Rebecca Norris Webb's.
Yep.
And this is definitely Alex Webb's.
Yeah. For me, I just like the I don't know. You have very like the stare is like an integral part of this, right? So you have the boy looking like towards the left, sort of in fear or like startled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what I see on the right is like a captive lion with like 1,000 yard stare. That's just like it seems like a very sad image to me, where it looks like he's behind the glass and you can see like he's captive and he knows he's captive,
Mm-hmm.
while the reflection of the glass is like this wide open expanse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm not really drawing like a thematic connection between those two, but definitely like the stairs are what kind of like links them together. Like not necessarily like the symbolism or like the people in the back or the color palette, but just like the differences in the feeling behind their stairs
Right.
is what gets to me.
Right. The theme that I'm sort of drawing up is the lion and the little boy
Mm-hmm.
both have the same thing to fear. You
Like
know, the little boy
yeah,
is fear. It could if we're I mean we're drawing this up in our heads.
yeah,
Um, this little boy could fear these two
mm-hmm.
adults, and this lion should fear these two adults.
Oh, gotcha.
You
Yeah,
know,
or what they represent.
or what they represent. You know,
Yeah,
we're talking
cool.
about poaching people.
Yeah, captivity.
Yeah, and captivity and all that fun stuff. I guess.
Yeah. Cool.
I
All
don't
right.
know. For some reason, I like immediately drew up all of these stories in my head, and
Yeah.
that's so crazy.
I mean, as you should. Like looking at
Yeah,
art is like completely subjective, and you
yeah.
should kind of run with like your own interpretations. We're forging on. All right. What do you
Okay,
think?
so this photo, man, the way Rebecca Norris Webb captures uh, animals in captivity is brilliant.
Yeah, and heartbreaking.
And yeah, because that's why it's brilliant because it's if you look at this photo and the last photo and you aren't heartbroken, I would consider doing research.
Yeah.
You know,
I thought you were
or
just gonna badmouth some people.
no, I would consider further like educating yourself about animals in captivity. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
and this photo on the right is like a a showstopper, and it's completely these are put together.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the page right now so I can tell you where each is from. I think the one on the right is from Havana, Cuba. Let's see if I can find it. I'm doing a very bad job of finding it.
Yeah, there's a distinct difference between uh, animals who are held for monetary profit
Mm-hmm.
and animals who are.
Oh, shoot, I got the order wrong. It's the opposite order. So,
Okay. Either
yeah.
way. And like, I guess to finish, it's like there's a difference between animals being held in captivity for profit, for monetary profit,
Mm-hmm.
and then also animals that are held um,
Or like in
to,
the wild.
yeah, like, or even for places that are like, I remember I went to this place in like going towards Santa Clarita in Los Angeles, where they have like bald eagles, and they have uh, alligators, and those animals, and they're in uh, what do they call them? They're not cages. They call them something differently.
Enclosures?
Enclosures. And so when you walk in, like you have to like think like, okay, what's up with this place?
Yeah.
But
It's
then
like,
upon further research, they're
mhm.
holding those animals because they were previous uh quote unquote pets to people thought that they could be pets.
Oh, yeah.
And if you put them back into the wild, they would just
They wouldn't survive.
they
They wouldn't
wouldn't
know how.
survive.
Yeah.
And it's just like this weird middle ground where like they in order to survive they have to live in these enclosures because
They're dependent on like humans.
some asshole thought that they could be a pet you
Yeah.
know
Hmm.
I don't think that this one right here is that story at all. Like to me this just breeds or just says that these animals are in enclosures for profit.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what this photo on the left is in
Uh,
relation to.
it's from Tehuantepec, Mexico.
Yeah, but I don't see the correlation other than like the sky and the ball
Yeah,
being the
I
sky in the background.
I think this one is mostly like a color palette thing.
Mm.
Yeah, where it's
And like
mostly the
legs
blues.
and stuff like that too.
Yeah, and like people being cut off in a way. Like you
Mm.
can't see the guy on the left's legs, but all you can see of the giraffe in the foreground are its legs.
Hmm.
Um, Not my favorite spread,
Right.
but I
But
think it.
definitely one of my favorite photos.
Yeah, on the right for sure. Yeah, and this also like kind of like shows sort of the delineation between their two styles, like we were saying before, where like Rebecca's is more like introspective and like poetic. We're talking about, and then Alex's is more technical, like really great composed street photography.
Right. How
Yep,
do you think he got this photo?
he did.
Yeah, do you think he just like
I
was
think
he just
like
walking around?
yeah. Well, he says he talks a lot about walking in like his blog posts or Instagram posts and like interviews and stuff, and how like the way to get to know a city is just to walk it and just like keep continuing to walk it. And I think his like MO, and I'm not sure if it is that he just walks around so much with a visible camera that people just kind of like get used to it. They're like, oh, that guy has a camera. And then he's walking around so much that they're just like, he's not, he's fine, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. What year was this?
It does not say. There's probably a glossary. I can look.
The last time I walked around in New York, um, which was last year,
Mm-hmm.
people were kind of
Like
giving me
suspicious.
the side eye, like, oh, here we go, another photographer with a damn camera in
Yeah,
Manhattan.
I got you. Okay, so there is no glossary. Sorry.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely something we could talk about. Like kind of like the suspiciousness towards, recording devices.
Yeah, I think I sort of like expressed my feelings towards it in the podcast version of this.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out if you haven't heard that.
Yeah, it's the Art Take podcast. I almost forgot the name of our podcast. You can find it on Spotify. iTunes, Apple Podcasts.
Bam.
I think this one is the last
Dang.
one.
Is that are those locusts?
I don't know.
Or are those just like foliage?
I think they're definitely insects.
That probably is locusts. Does it say where
I'm looking
it's
right
photographed?
now. I think it's in South Dakota, but I could
Oh,
be
okay.
wrong. It's definitely America.
I don't think it's locusts then.
I'm ready to be wrong right now as I look.
I wonder what it
Close.
is.
Yeah,
I'm
all
not up on
that's
my locust game though, so it might be.
right. Like my arthropod knowledge
Yeah.
is somewhat lacking. Man, I'm like flipping through and I'm like, damn, these spreads would have been good too. But we only have a limited amount of time.
So to touch up again on like my like on street photography and or like talking about like taking photos of people. So I think in the podcast I talked about like getting to know somebody before you take their portrait and
Mm-hmm.
sort of thinking that like that type of mentality is more important than taking the photo itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like it's different when you're taking photos of people. Like in this situation, this man is here, right?
Mm-hmm.
This type of photography is drastically different
Then
than
street
portrait
portraits.
photography,
Yeah,
right? And you're
I believe
like,
that.
I don't think like if you wanted to take a portrait of this man, going up to this man and saying, "Hey, can I take your portrait?" And then they turn around and say either yes or no. And then let's say they say yes, and then you take the portrait and then you peace out.
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me has no meaning,
Yeah.
you know? Um, but taking a photo like this, very candid and just sort of quote unquote street photography style,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times that's very necessary
Yeah.
to get candid, and
Yeah. And we're talking about like two different like
yeah,
approaches and intents, right?
yeah,
Because
exactly.
like portraiture has this, there's eye contact usually. It's like about the person, right?
Hmm.
And then street photography is about kind of the moment and
And
sort
life
of like,
itself and
yeah,
the ebb
like
and
life,
flow.
humanity, what's happening within the confines of, your box.
Yeah,
And this, I think this would be, if this was a portrait, like you're saying, you would lose a lot of the scene
a lot.
here.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
a completely different
for sure.
emotion
I
and
found the spread left Havana, Cuba again. There's a lot of Havana, Cuba work in
mm-hmm.
this slideshow, and on the right is near Grey Goose, South Dakota. So I was right.
Aha.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it also doesn't say what kind of insects those are.
I
Let's
wonder.
call them locusts. I mean, like these plants don't look very healthy, right? It almost
Yeah,
looks
and
like they've been eaten. Are they
they've been
sunflowers?
locust.
Yeah. I learned recently that locusts are just grasshoppers that congregate, and once there are enough of them, they kind of like develop new physical features when they're in a group. Do you know that?
Dang.
So it's not even a species. Locusts are not a species. It's just a state of grasshoppers when they're in swarms.
Dang.
The more you know.
Maybe that'll be my art recommendation for you to go check out the band The Locusts.
Cool. Are they
Because
are they like grasshoppers also?
well they definitely form into something completely different when they're all together.
Oh, gotcha. Very cool.
So I'm gonna focus on the photo on the right. If we're talking about photographing life and the ebb and flow of life, I I see it more in the right photo and not so much in the left photo.
Yeah. I would
Um,
agree, but with the sort of disclaimer that I can't really relate to life in the one on the left.
that's
Like
probably why.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we touched up on this a little bit in the previous episodes of our podcast or something, but um, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I just see it more on the right side.
Yeah. Well, the last point I made was like we can't like me personally, I can't relate to life like what like life pictured on the left, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the right, it's kind of maybe like a more universal thing where like
Right.
crops withering.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Also, what do you feel about him working on? Do you want to see what he's working on, or is that part of the intrigue?
I think if we like turned down, if we like lowered our gaze, we'd lose a lot of the architecture that makes it an interesting composition,
Mm-hmm.
because his like the shape of his body mimics the architecture where it's kind of like a bent thing like
Mm-hmm.
this, right? Yeah, exactly. And if we like maybe if we stepped back, we could see um like what he was working on, but really just like the expression of physical like intensity is important. Wow, that's a really
Yeah.
yeah, and the geometry of it is the important part.
Yeah, indeed.
Cool. And I think that kind of ties both the images together, where they have a similar color palette with the like beige colors and the grays, and then like this important like bent over where like the sunflowers are drooping, and
Yeah.
he's like bent over like in, you know, maybe not physical pain but like exertion, and so are these like arches. You know,
Yeah.
they're like carrying load.
Yeah,
So I
and
think yeah, go
yeah.
for it.
I was gonna say also, if I were to imagine what paint chipping off and flowing out of like into the wind would look like, it would look like these what we are calling locusts for some
Oh,
reason.
very interesting. So kind of like the decay of the buildings
Yeah,
is kind of
if
like tied
yeah,
to wow.
that's like maybe because I'm
Sharp.
playing Paper Mario right now, but like if the paint were to chip off
Mhm.
and fly away, it would look like these
Nice.
in
And
my
become
mind at
like
least.
yeah, that's cool. I like those associations.
Yeah.
Nice. I think this was the last slide. What did you think about like the combos in this slideshow?
Did did they put it together? Did somebody else put it together?
So the process, as I understand it from this book, was that they like took a retrospective look at a bunch of their projects and sort of pieced together, like they printed it all, laid it all out, and then like kind of like drew connections between um, like pairings of their work.
Mm,
So they definitely like chose all of the things.
yeah. Well, that's good because it's one thing to have like an outside source put your work together,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's another to see like essentially what they are, what they were thinking about. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
it's
Yeah.
also a really nice look into the relationship.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah. I'll send you the podcast episode where they talk about like their story and a lot about this book. It's Ben Smith's podcast called A Small Voice, and it's a really good podcast. You should check it out if you
yeah,
don't.
I'll check it out. I don't know, but everyone else
Well, I
should
was
check it
talking
out
to
too.
everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was talking
yeah,
to the audience,
yeah,
but you also.
yeah. No, I definitely want to check it out now.
Cool. I think that's where we'll end this episode of the video experience
Hmm.
of the Art Take. Thank you all for tuning in. A reminder to check out our podcast, The Art Take. It's available on Apple Podcasts. I'm going to call it that. Spotify and all those aggregate apps that just take databases and stream it wherever
Yeah,
they're streamed. This episode is sort of paired with our photography episode, episode 4, which is coming out soon. If you want to stay up to date on our release schedule and stuff like that, visit our Instagram, The Art Take. And if you have any takes on Rebecca Norris Webb or Alex's Webb's work, and you think we're dead wrong, you want to send us some hate mail, send it to thearttake@gmail.com. And we will see you next time.
all righty.
Peace.